Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report News Hour for the third day in the 11th month in the 16th year of Changi. Tim Elder sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Kyung And I hope everyone is having a wonderful Christmas season. And as I've said before, the fact that Jesus was not actually born on December 25th is not important. Not important. What's important is that uh, most of the world celebrates his birth and it could be any day. It doesn't matter what day it is. It could be any day. And anyway, the Romans, the Christians in the Rome, decided December 25th was as good as day any, and so that's the way it is. So Merry Christmas. Okay, Merry Christmas. Anyway, yes, most of the world, and I like that even in countries like Japan and Taiwan that have a very small um Christian population relative to the overall population. You hear Christmas hymns and Christmas music uh, as you're walking through the malls or even in the shopping streets, and I think that's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing. All right, so Merry Christmas. All right. So let's go through our regular trip through the kingdom. And right now in Chongpyeong, Tennessee, 29 degrees, mostly clear, mostly sunny today, high of 56 tonight, mostly cloudy with areas of drizzle, and a low of 43. Okay, so relatively mild, it looks like. And at True Father's homeland of Cheongju, North Pyongan province, in what is today North Korea, currently 25 and clear, increasing clouds and getting down to 16 tonight, getting into the teens. Tomorrow, a little snow in the morning, accumulating a coat to an inch. Otherwise, cloudy high tomorrow at 31. And then in the Chinese Palace in northeast Pennsylvania, 27 degrees and mostly clear. Today, high of 38, breezy this morning, otherwise partly to mostly sunny tonight. Low of 27, increasing clouds with intermittent snow and flurries late, accumulating a coating to an inch. And then at the Libby Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, 61 and fog. Wow. Very warm today, high of 77. Very warm with a stray shower, cloudy this morning, then intervals of clouds and sunshine this afternoon. Tonight, breezy this evening, otherwise mostly cloudy, low of 65. At the Suncheon Palace in Korea, some clouds, 35. Currently getting down to 28 tonight with partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow, sun and areas of high clouds in the morning, becoming cloudy in the afternoon, high of 55. And then in at the Gunma Palaces in Japan, currently 40 degrees and clear, remaining clear through the night, low of 28. Tomorrow, plenty of sunshine, high of 47. And in Guangdong Province in China, clear in 73. Right now, mainly clear tonight, 62 for a low. Tomorrow, hazy sun, very warm, high of 79. By the way, we've passed the winter solstice, right? And uh, here in Korea, it was exactly 9 hours ago. Uh, no, 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 it was much more than that. Yeah, no, 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 wait, no, 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 it's not 9 hours. 21 hours ago. 21 hours ago. It was 12:03 in the morning. And um, so at that time, here it was Monday, 3 minutes past midnight, right? But uh, in the US and Europe, I guess, it was still Sunday. And so that's why I think if you look at the calendars there, it says that Sunday is the winter solstice, but here it is Monday that is the winter solstice. Okay. So, why is that important? Well, because the winter solstice is what? It's the anchor of the heavenly calendar. Remember there's a rule. The rule is that the winter solstice must always occur in the 11th month. And lo and behold, it did. Why? Because we stuck in an extra month, right? Back earlier this year, we repeated the sixth month, if you remember. If we had not repeated the sixth month, this would not be the 11th month right now. We'd already be in the 12th month, which is against the rule. So, in order to avoid that, we had that extra month, repeating the 6th month. So roughly every 3 years, not exactly, but roughly every 3 years, we have that extra month being inserted. So it's 13 months to make up for the fact that 12 cycles of the moon, new moon to new moon, 12 cycles of the moon only comes to 354 days, not 365, which is the approximate length of time that it takes the Earth to go one lap around the sun. And so we need to uh, have that extra month in order to even things out. Okay. Alrighty then. Let's see what is going on with Father's Word. Let's see here. All right, let's go to the final book in the Cheonseongeong. This is the book on true families and the family pledge. And here, of course, in this book, Father, well, in the first chapter is about, he goes through the background for the declaration of a family pledge, and then in the second chapter, he goes through it sort of phrase by phrase by phrase in very, very minute detail. And here we are, uh, we're in the final verse. We're in the eighth verse, and let's see what we're talking about here. We're talking about the unity of a God and human beings in love. One body ideal, one body, 일체 이상. So of a God and human beings becoming one in love. Talking about that. So here, Father asks, he's speaking here, October 8th, 1993. What is the difference between the traditional churches and the Unification Church? Well, let me count the ways, basically, right? There are a number of differences, but here, Father's going to focus on one of those, I assume. 통일교회는 신인 일체를 사랑을 중심 삼고 정착시켰다는 것입니다. So the Unification Church has established the one body of God and human beings centering on love. One body meaning the unity of or God and human beings becoming one body, centering on love. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Yeah? 기성신학에는 하나님은 거룩하고 인간은 속되고 죄된 것으로 정의됩니다. In established theologies, God is holy, right? And human beings are sinful, and we're sinful. Excuse me. So if that's the case, then how is it that God's love and the love of human beings can become one? 그거 말할 수 없습니다. So in established theologies, there's no way to speak about that. They can't become one. 절대적인 하나님은 무엇이든지 할 수 있다고 생각하고 있기 때문에 문제입니다. So the problem is that they think that the absolute God who is absolute, can do anything. 그러므로 기독교가 가는 곳은 피를 많이 흘려왔습니다. And that is why blood has been shed everywhere that Christianity goes. That's an important point. Yeah. 하나님의 명령을 끌어놓어 침략하고 탈취한 것입니다. So they pull, or I guess the 명령을 끌어놓고, meaning that the Christians have applied, or I guess literally pulled, but the meaning, of course, is that used God's order, command, to invade and steal. 독재자를 냈습니다. And produce tyrants. Well, come on. I mean, there have been tyrants, plenty of tyrants in non-Christian places as well. Anyway, 어, 세계는 그렇게 안 됩니다. But the world cannot be that way. 하나님의 본성으로 볼 때 그렇게 될 수 없습니다. From the point of view of the original nature of God, it cannot be that way. Okay, so yeah, it is true that there were tyrants in non-Christian places, but the idea is that I think what Father is saying is that um, if God's will, if there had been a correct understanding of God's heart, of God's shimjong, then there would not have been all this bloodshed and tyranny in places that were ostensibly Christian. Okay. All right. So yes, praise God. And so now, though, in the eighth stanza of the Family Pledge talks about the unity of God and human beings in love. And so Father's making the point that this is something that cannot be conceived in the context of traditional Christian theologies. We can in the context of a Father's teaching. Praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God. Yes, very important. Especially, in this Christmas season. Um, there's a hymn about this, isn't there? Hold on a second. There's a reason that Father gave us this today. Hold on a second. This must be. So this is from the Annandale Baptist Church, and talking about Christmas carols that all right, well, I can't find what I'm looking for. Anyway, okay. But they're talking about God, human beings united with God in salvation, which is a little bit different. Okay. What's the one? What's the one though? Okay. Oh no, now I can't get it out of my mind here. Okay, I give up. Um, it's in the back of my mind, kind of deep in the back of my mind. Okay. All right, probably one of you is going to send me an email, I suspect. Anyway. All right, now back to the reality of today's less than perfect world. Okay. This is maybe not bad. I wish I could have more good news in Christmas week, but I don't. Here we go. An opinion. The West has woken up to China's threat far too late. Well, no, it's probably not far too late. It's barely in time, I suspect. And I think we're going to pull this off. I'm optimistic because I believe that God's providence is going to work things out, and I know that true Father and true Mother are one in spirit world. They have established oneness, right? They have established oneness in God's love. And so I think it's all going to work out. I'm certain it is. But anyway, let's see what this person has to say. Giving businesses the freedom to do their thing while we maintain national security is much more difficult than it looks. Two stories from last week show how much harder. For 2 decades now, the jewels of our industry have been vanishing or turning red in their different ways. iRobot and ASML shed light on a crisis no one really wants to acknowledge. Last week, iRobot filed for bankruptcy. And I think a lot of you have a little iRobot sort of running around your house, right? Sort of sweeping the floor as it goes, and was immediately acquired by Paisia Robotics, its China-based contract manufacturer. You may know iRobot for its Roomba vacuum cleaner, launched in 2002, but that's only a part of the iRobot story. The company was established in 1990 by a trio of MIT alumni, including Rodney Brooks, probably the US's best known roboticist. iRobot was DARPA's choice for a tactical military robot in 1998, and its defense and industrial work was its mainstay for years, even as the Roomba took off. The company's machines were called on in emergencies, navigating the rubble of 9/11 and the Deepwater Horizon spill almost a decade later. The combination of industrial, consumer, and research contracts seemed like a perfect fit. In Germany, which has a less voracious financial sector, it would have been permitted to continue to excel at all three, but Wall Street didn't like it one bit. A hedge fund called Red Mountain Capital told iRobot chairman and co-founder Colin Angle he was spending too much on research and development. The fund wanted the cash to go on share buybacks instead. Red Mountain called iRobot's VC investments an egregious and abusive use of shareholder capital. Therefore, iRobot reluctantly sold off its defense and industrial businesses to a private equity firm in 2016. Now it had to go head to head with better capitalized rivals in the brutal consumer market, where forging a distribution channel is difficult and expensive. A sure sign that iRobot had hollowed itself out was when it assigned the design to a Chinese contract manufacturer. One reviewer last year reported that Roombas now look like much of the mid-range competition, a generic LiDAR-based robot vac with the Roomba name and a few design tweaks plastered on. The models tested had significant issues. So the iRobot story was an emblematic one. The West was denuding itself of industrial capacity. The other startling news last week was that China will be producing chips comparable to the most advanced Western microprocessors years sooner than anyone predicted. Today, the chips with the highest performance are produced by just one Dutch equipment maker, ASML. Trying to recreate its cutting-edge extreme ultraviolet lithography has been compared to the Manhattan Project to create the first atomic bomb. In April, ASML's chairman insisted parity would take years and years to achieve. However, Reuters reported that China has now reverse engineered the techniques and is on course to achieve it by 2030. It did so with the aid of recently retired Chinese-born former ASML engineers and scientists. I shall leave aside the argument over whether this actually matters, as much as some insist. Possibly far more consequential is that we built the wrong AI, drunk on Davos talk of productivity miracles. Your pension pot may well soon reflect this generational error. The fact is, ASML's EUV was perceived to matter a great deal, and like the cutting-edge NVIDIA chips, was the subject of embargoes. Arrests have been made for allegedly smuggling NVIDIA chips into China. It's akin to treason. But hang on a second. Why are we prohibiting the sale of confectionery manufacturing equipment to our superpower adversary when we just sell them the sweets directly? Because that's exactly what's happened. For years, the US semiconductor industry has lobbied against embargoes. ASML fought these sanctions too, arguing China's defense sector didn't need the latest and greatest chips. But this month, the Silicon Valley venture capitalist David Sachs and Trump's AI czar, has succeeded in punching holes in the NVIDIA embargo too in an astonishing turn of events. Sale of NVIDIA's H200 chips to China will resume, and the U.S. government will retain a 25% cut. Sachs' argument is that direct sales to China will disincentivize homegrown technology. Some chance of that. China wants something, and thanks to the greed and short-sightedness of the tech sector, it will get it. The moral of the iRobot story is that Wall Street hates R&D and prefers financial engineering to the real thing. The moral of the semiconductor story is that it's Silicon Valley greed that runs foreign policy, not the State Department. Denuding the West of vital industrial capacity to appease financial interests has been going on for years. A Pentagon report in 2021 warned that concentrated supply chains, offshoring, and a business climate that has favored short-term shareholder earnings had all severely damaged America's ability to arm itself. Suppliers went from 2 to 1 to none in critical defense sectors ranging from milling to chemicals. It's what Karl Marx identified when he predicted, the last capitalist we hang shall be the one who sold us the rope. He said he was saying that greedy businessmen can't resist a deal, even if it's a deal that ultimately kills them. Alas, the modern, monopoly-friendly globalist version of capitalism has left us in the same spot. A war with any adversary will be very short indeed. The world is in the grip of AI mania. The consequences could be devastating, right? All right, so very pessimistic, but I think pretty realistic view of the trade relationship between the United States and China. And well, I'm not an expert in these areas, and so forth, or trade or anything like that. So I don't know enough to be able to comment on this, but yes, yeah. But here is an AI story that I find very, very interesting. That is that in San Francisco, there was a power outage, and of course, 130,000 people were in the dark, but also self-driving car service stops vehicles in the street. In other words, the vehicles just stopped in the middle of the road when the power went out. A massive power outage plunged large swaths of San Francisco into darkness Saturday, knocking out electricity to about 130,000 homes and businesses and leaving self-driving cars stalled in city streets. And then I wonder, did the criminals go crazy then and just start going from car to car robbing people? I don't know. I haven't seen that, but it would seem that that could have happened. Pacific Gas and Electric Company did not immediately say what caused blackouts to roughly 1/3 of the utility company's customers in the city. Fire officials posted on X at about 3:15 p.m. Oh, I see. So it's in the middle of the afternoon. That at least some of the blackouts were caused by a fire that broke out inside a PG&E substation at 8th and Mission Street. So imagine what it would have been like if it had been in the middle of the night, right? That would have been much worse, I think, but much more dangerous. The outage darkened large parts of the city's north side. It's 3:15 p.m., so how is it darkening? Anyway, starting in the Richmond and Presidio neighborhoods and areas around Golden Gate Park early in the afternoon before spreading further. Autonomous vehicles stalled in the middle of the streets, triggering traffic jams across affected areas. The San Francisco Department of Emergency Management said on X there were significant transit disruptions happening citywide and urged residents to avoid non-essential travel and treat down traffic signals as four-way stops. Waymo temporarily suspended its autonomous ride-hailing service in the wake of the blackout. Good idea. Fox News Digital reached out to Waymo, but didn't hear back. Okay. And then PG&E later said that as of 11:30 p.m., crews had restored power to about 95,000 customers, with about 35,000 customers remaining without power, and they were working through the night. But what about those cars that were stalled in the middle of the street? When did they start moving again? I wonder. Right. So that's sort of the downside of AI, right? Your car could stop at any moment if there's a widespread power outage. Uh, Maybe going back to the good old fashioned horse and buggy with before you know it, you know. This morning, okay, well, here's some good news, I suppose. If at least if you're holding gold and silver, gold is at a record high, historic, no, all-time high, $4,400. Silver is at $69. Wow. Okay. Silver, $69. Hmm. Interesting. So if you're holding gold and silver, you're doing quite well this morning, at least on paper. And it looks like these stock markets are going to open higher, at least as of now. That's what it looks like. Okay. And we'll see. Anyway, let's go to the Epic Times to see what's going on there. Okay, there's a TPUSA event going on in Arizona, and uh, let's see here. Vance warns conservatives to not cancel each other. Sparks flew between Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, and other speakers at Turning Point USA's America Fest 2025. Let's see what's going on here. In Phoenix, the final minutes of Turning Point USA's sometimes fractious America Fest, Vice President J.D. Vance called for something short of a truce. He urged conservatives to not try to expel each other from conservatism. I didn't bring a list of conservatives to denounce or deplatform, Vance said in his December 21 speech, which capped off the first America Fest that Turning Point USA has put on since the assassination of the organization, one of the organization's founders, Charlie Kirk, on September 10th. In his remarks, which also emphasized the deep roots of Christianity in American life, America appealed to Kirk's own commitment to open dialogue on the political right. None of us here should be doing something after Kirk's death that he himself refused to do in life, the vice president said. He invited all of us here. Now, we have far more important work to do than canceling each other, he added. On the first day of America Fest 2025, political commentators Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson traded jabs. Shapiro came on stage just after Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk. He castigated Carlson as well as media personalities Steve Bannon, Megyn Kelly, and Candace Owens. All but Owens went on to take the stage over the course of the multi-day event. If Candace Owens decides to spend every day since the murder of Charlie Kirk casting aspersions at TPUSA, implicating everyone from French intelligence to Mossad to members of TPUSA in Kirk's murder, or a cover-up in that murder, then we as people with a microphone have a moral obligation to call that out by name, Shapiro said. He accused Carlson of going silent on Owens' triggering of silent on Owens' targeting of US TPUSA, and accused Kelly, whom he said he considers a friend, of shying away from condemning her actions. Shapiro alleged that Bannon was maligning people he disagrees with by imputing loyalty to a country other than the United States without evidence. In his own day one speech, Carlson denounced Shapiro's remarks, saying that they were a bid to deplatform him. He also alleged that comments were part of a proxy war against Vance. Just minutes before Shapiro spoke, Erica Kirk, who became TPUSA CEO after her husband's death, said her organization backed a potential Vance presidential bid in 2028. In the course of his remarks, Shapiro described Carlson as quite close with the vice president. Carlson told the audience, there are people who are mad at J.D. Vance, and they're stirring up a lot of this in order to make sure he doesn't get the nomination. Kelly also took issue with Shapiro's comments, airing her objections on December 19th during a conversation with commentator and activist Jack Posobiec. I resent that he thinks he's in a position to decide who must say what to whom and when, Kelly said, so I don't think we are friends anymore. I've been a very good friend to Ben, Kelly continued. She said that she helped make him a star during her time at Fox News. She also pointed out that they agree on many things, but that they disagree on whether Tucker Carlson should be excommunicated from the conservative movement. Bannon, too, fired back at Shapiro. In his December 19th America Fest speech, the former White House strategist under President Donald Trump called Shapiro a hardcore never Trumper and accused him of seeking to put Israeli interests ahead of U.S. interests. On December 21, Vance told the America Fest crowd that some level of disagreement can signal strength in conservatism, which he described as a movement of free thinkers. I think uh, this is kind of illustrating what Father said in this morning's quote, where there's bloodshed wherever Christianity goes. And because we don't have the unity of a God and human beings in love, and uh, that's what I think is what I feel is going on here. Yeah. As the vice president came on stage at the Phoenix Convention Center, he was met by Erica Kirk. The Ohioan has not declared his candidacy for the 2028 election, which is almost 3 years away, or a little bit less than 3 years away, right? Okay. Although the 22nd Amendment restricts presidents to 2 terms, some have speculated that Trump could seek a 3rd term. Trump has ruled out the possibility. Yeah, I think we can rule it out. I don't know why he would even want to do it, right? Well, he could be in the, I mean, he can be in the background and he can be the kingmaker and so forth. Aside from whether 3 years from now Trump will be the best candidate for the Republicans. Although he has not endorsed Vance as his successor, Trump has floated both Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio as strong contenders. Rubio has said he will not run if the vice president enters the race. Although Vance did not address the upcoming Republican presidential election cycle on December 21, he discussed the prospective Democratic field, saying that the party will ultimately choose between California Governor Gavin Newsom and former Vice President Kamala Harris. Well, we can hope. We can hope that will be the choice for Democrats. Go Harris, Harris, Harris. Where can I donate to Harris's campaign? Ah, Gavin Newsom. The Democrats may be foolish enough to nominate Newsom, yes, but Harris, come on. But it's true that Gavin Newsom, his weak point, of course, is that he's white and male. Yes, so I guess it's possible that they'll go with Harris. Oh my goodness, that would be just incredible. But who else do they have? I guess right. That you got the Kathy Hochul, perhaps, New York governor, or the Michigan governor, whatever, but they're also both white, and that's not good. Um, oh, I know. Letitia James. the, the black woman who's what is she? She's the attorney general of in New York, right? Or the what is it? Not attorney general, but anyway, the attorney in New York, U.S. attorney, whatever. She's been going after President Trump. Oh, well, hey, hey, wow, I may be right. I could be right, Letitia James. Okay, she would be a terrible choice, but the fact that she's a terrible choice might not matter all that much at all. But she might be better than Harris. At least I think she might be better than Harris. Yes, yeah, yeah, maybe a better candidate. At least she can speak better than Harris. Who else? Who else? Who else? The Pennsylvania governor, what's his name? His name is Shapiro, right? Except, well, yeah, in addition to being white and male, he's also Jewish. So, so he's got 3 strikes. For the Democrats. So that won't work. So who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Yeah, maybe Letitia James. Right? Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's okay. Yeah. Okay, the question is settled here on the King's Report. Letitia James for 2028 is a Democratic nominee. Anyway, well, we'll see. We'll see. All right, let's see here. Okay, so all their big names that spoke. RNC Chairman Michael Whatley, now running for Senate in North Carolina, and Florida gubernatorial hopeful Byron Donalds, right? He also, Byron, and that's a photograph of Byron Donalds there. He also ran for president for a while. I think not this past 2020 cycle, but I think in 2016, I think maybe, yeah. And Representative Andy Biggs, now running for governor of Arizona. Okay. And Mike Johnson, okay, he's the House Speaker, of course. Also, Donald Trump Jr. Donald Trump Jr. Probably not, right? Probably not. And let's see here. Nicki Minaj, the special rapper, apparently. I'm not very familiar with rappers. Okay, and the programming on December 21 opened with a worship service, so that's good. Pastor Greg Lowry, who spoke before Watley, discussed Vance's journey to Christianity. Okay. Vance told the audience that he hoped that she would eventually convert to Christianity. He's talking about Vance's wife, Usha. Mm. But Vance says he and his wife, his Hindu wife, are raising their children as Christians. Mm. Okay. You know, it's um, it's interesting to me how people can change from one religion to another. And of course, I had a conversion experience when I met the Unification Church, but that was sort of within the context of Christianity. But I've been interested in the fact that many Unification Church people in Japan converted from Buddhism when the king, not, I'm not, some of, unfortunately, many of those people are currently in the Family Federation. So maybe there may be a question as to how much they really understood about uh, God's message in the Unification Church. But anyway, when the king was speaking in Japan, when was this? Of course, this was before Father's passing, so it would have been in either 2012 or 2011. He asked the audience, there was about, I suppose, about 1,000 or so Japanese Unification Church members. It may have been a bit more, but it was a full crowd. And he asked them to raise their hand if they had converted from Buddhism. And I think he specified a particular sect of Buddhism. I can't remember which one it was. Um, but there's a particular sect of Buddhism, and I don't want to say because I might get it wrong. A particular sect of Buddhism that he said is closer to Christianity than the others because he said this one emphasizes faith rather than simply repeating certain sutras like Nam Myoho Renge Kyo or something like that. But there's one that emphasizes faith. And so he asked people to raise their hand if they had converted from that particular sect of Buddhism, and quite a lot of people raised their hands. And I was quite impressed, quite impressed. Of course, the issue in Japan, of course, my father recently passed into spirit world after working as a Christian missionary in Japan for more than 7 decades. And the issue in Japan uh, is this that people don't often convert from Buddhism or any other religion in Japan. Basically, in Japan, it's just well, there's Shinto, but yeah, basically Buddhism. Okay, they don't convert to Christianity very often, And so it's been a question of mine. What is how is it that people can do that? Could just completely change. But people are comfortable in what they have. And I think that is probably the main reason that they're comfortable. I've talked about the no brand burger, right? The no brand burger chain or franchise that's near my home here, where the advertising slogan is, it's good enough. Why pay more? Right? This is the no brand burger, which is across the street from the all meat patty store. No, I think it's the charcoal broil store. I'm saying the Burger King. It's across the street from Burger King, and yet seems to be doing quite well. And also in religion, people say, well, I mean, why change when I'm satisfied with what I have? This is what I inherited from my parents, and and besides, Christianity is a foreign religion. It's a Western religion, and we're Asian. All right, we're Asian. We don't do Christianity. That's something that Americans and maybe Europeans do. But come on, we're Asian. We have our own gods. This type of attitude and this type of thinking, I think, is very, very prevalent in both Japan and in Taiwan. Not so much in Korea. The reason in Korea is that Christianity identified itself with the resistance against Japanese occupation and Japanese rule during the first half of the 20th century. Prior to that, Christianity paid a very high price in Korea, especially Catholic Christians paid a high price. And to be Christian was illegal, and uh, people were killed for it. Of course, in Japan as well. And Japan, in the what shall you say, the 16th century, 16th century, and then into this early part of the 17th century, Christianity was a kind of it appealed to people who were resisting the rule of the dominant warlords in either in Kyoto or later on in what is today Tokyo. It wasn't called Tokyo then, but you know, and also that's why it was suppressed because it was a kind of a resistance movement against centralized authority, and uh, and also the idea that there was a being that was above the emperor. Of course, that was not kosher either. But how do people go from, let's say, from Hindu? Well, let's try to think. How does Usha Vance go from being a Hindu to becoming a Christian? How does that happen? She has a religion that she has inherited from her parents, and she's comfortable with it. Now, Father's, of course, idea with the unity of religions is that each religion has or is waiting for a person or a being that represents the ultimate ideal of that religion. So in Buddhism, it's the Maitreya Buddha, and also Islam is waiting for someone. And, sure about Hinduism, but Father's teaching is that the people in various religions will recognize the ultimate ideal of their religion in the Lord of the Second Advent. And perhaps Usha Vance will see that in Father at some point. And she may leapfrog her husband. She may wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm going to become a Moody," because I see in the second king of Chandragupta Hyokjimun the ultimate ideal of, or at least in his teaching of True Father, the ultimate ideals of the religion that I inherited from my parents. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? She may leapfrog him. We'll see what happens. Okay. But I think it's an interesting point, and some people are prepared. Some people are, of course, struggling with what they have, and they feel that what they have is not enough for them. and that there must be something more. Yeah. That's when people can make that conversion, it seems. All right, let's see here. What else is going on here? Uh, but the conservatives fighting among themselves certainly is, well, it's pretty much par for the course. This is what always happens when, a party wins the majority, they always split up. They always start fighting each other. And then the other party wins, and then they start fighting each other, and it goes on back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This is what always happens. Okay, let's see here. Trump appoints special envoy to Greenland. Okay, yes. We'll see what happens with that. Still asleep at the wheel. How communist China turned rare earths into a weapon. Okay. And Trump Starmer, as the British Prime Minister, discussed Ukraine, Gaza peace efforts and pre-Christmas call. And meetings between U.S. Ukrainian delegations to end the war productive and constructive, according to Witkoff. I don't believe a word of that. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Muddy eruption. Okay. Powerball jackpot climbs to 1.6 billion. Right. Okay. Well, I hope whoever wins is able to manage that money. Otherwise, it'll be terrible for them. White House economist proposal coming soon on $2,000 tariff rebate checks. And also, we're being told that our tax refunds next year are going to be huge, huge. I can't do it. I can't mimic Trump. um, okay, just in time for the midterm elections, and I guess that's the whole point of it. Okay. All right. Okay. How Chinese syndicates with ties to CCP took over marijuana black market in the U.S. Let's take a look at this. Yeah. Of course, we have the opium wars of the 19th century, and certainly China has not forgotten that, and the CCP is using that, right, as a sort of a rallying cry to say how well, the CCP is restoring China's dignity and stuff like that. But now, just as President Trump has reclassified marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, we are reading now how Chinese syndicates with tied to the CCP took over the marijuana black market. It's an international business for them, a drug enforcement expert said. Yeah. Drug enforcement expert. And well, yeah. And it's disappointing that when President Trump reclassified marijuana, he did not do anything to strengthen the heterosexual two-parent family so that parents could pass on their values to the children. Of course, many parents, of course, experienced marijuana during the 60s and 70s and beyond, I suppose. But yeah, but we really need to, as we make these changes in drug policy, we really need to be working on the demand side of drugs in the United States. Chinese organized crime with suspected ties to the Chinese Communist Party has taken over an estimated 75% of the marijuana black market in the United States, a federal narcotics expert said. This guy, the National Deputy Coordinator of the Marijuana Impact Group within the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Program, well, that's a mouthful, said that the black market marijuana trade has grown exponentially into an estimated $300 billion a year industry. This stuff is being exported out of the country, whether it's to Canada, France, England. It's an international business for them. This, what shall I call him? Any Rob, okay, his name is Rob. His first name is Rob. Told the Epic Times they're not growing in the U.S. just to keep it within the U.S. It's going international. A pound of marijuana bought for $450 to $500 or less in California, for example, will sell in New York for much more. And in some countries where marijuana is illegal with more severe penalties, it sells for exponentially more, ranging from $5,000 to $20,000 a pound, Rob said. I just kicked my camera. In the past, Mexican cartels hid outdoor marijuana grows on U.S. public lands, such as national forests. But in recent years, Chinese syndicates have brazenly moved into states that legalized the medicinal and recreational use of marijuana and reduced penalties for illegal cannabis cultivation, he said. A decade ago, you rarely saw anything other than the Mexican cartels running marijuana, and generally that was being bought across the border, Rob said, brought across the border. Somewhere along the line, it changed, and that trade changed hands from the Mexican cartels to the CCP. Oh, my goodness. But all because there's this demand, right? Because there's a demand. How and why it happened remains somewhat of a mystery, he said, especially because there is no real evidence of clashes between Chinese and Mexican cartels. We don't see them warring against each other over the marijuana trade. Why isn't there any Hispanic or Chinese violence? Hispanic on Chinese violence. Usually it's Hispanic on Hispanic, Chinese on Chinese, or Chinese on some other Asian group. Rob said there's a lot of theories out there, but the bottom line is they're operating together. Narcotic experts suspect there must have been some sort of alliance struck between Mexican and Chinese cartels, and according to witnesses who testified at a September 18 House Homeland Security Subcommittee hearing, such deal may have come in the form of cheap Chinese money laundering services for Mexican cartels. Mm-hmm. And here there's a soldier who's uh, tearing up some marijuana plants, pulling them out of the ground. It's like a Mexican soldier. And this is in Cosala, Mexico in 2019, 6 years ago. Christopher Urban, a former agent with DEA who now works for global investigations firm Nardello and Co., told the subcommittee the CCP is now doing most of the laundering for Mexican cartels and is using the Chinese-controlled WeChat app and cryptocurrency to do it. Chinese money laundering organizations are now one of the key actors laundering money professionally in the United States and around the globe, according to the latest National Money Laundering Risk Assessment by the Department of Treasury. Urban called for increased use of Racketeering Influence in Corrupt Organizations Act, or RICO, originally enacted in 1970 to target the Italian mafia, to prosecute Chinese and Mexican organized crime and advocate for the creation of a new, well-funded federal task force with the tactical ability to move from state to state. Of course, there's a problem with that, in that this kind of thing then, strengthens central control. And in the past, we had something called a drug czar, right? I think that was, when was that? Was that either during the first Trump administration or maybe Obama? I think it was, yeah, I think maybe it might have been Trump, a drug czar. In other words, a person who has sort of accessed the central control over, there we go, back from synonym, over the sort of the enforcement of drugs. And the Tonu Constitution, as I remind you, says that the government, or at least the federal government, cannot ban hallucinogenic, let's get the exact word here, substances, but it can regulate them. Let's see, let's get this. So, here we go. Intoxicating substances is how it's put. Okay. Let me show you here. Okay. Congress may regulate, but is prohibited from outlawing intoxicating substances. Okay. So, in other words, in the Chinese Constitution, at least for the Congress, at least for the federal Congress, they cannot outlaw marijuana or heroin or cocaine or any other intoxicating substance, but they can regulate it. Regulating, I think, well, we'll see what that means. That'll be decided by Congress and decided by the courts what that actually means in practice. But I suppose it means, for example, taxing or saying, what else could it mean? Well, like cigarettes are regulated, right? You have to put certain language on the packaging and that kind of thing. But also in the Eternal Constitution, government is kept small, which encourages strong families. And we see a very clear correlation or reverse correlation in history, where as government becomes larger and stronger, uh, there's a breakdown of the authority of the family, and people are relying more on government than they are on their family. So there's a there's a lot going into suppressing the demand in the within the Chunibok society, in the culture of Chunibok society. But we don't have that right now, and so this drug issue is becoming worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And now we have the Chinese Communist Party and perhaps the North Koreans are involved in it. I suspect. I'm sure that Kim Jong Un can see a good deal when he sees it, and so it's uh, getting worse there as we go along. And we will see what will happen. But we know that in many ways right now, Satan's world is collapsing, and we uh, would like to preserve as much of it as we can, so to convert it to God's world, Chanukah world. But we will see what things look like when everything has collapsed, and we'll have to be picking up the pieces. And we'll also have to see how many people have actually survived the collapse, and hope that many blessed families are among those survivors. Okay, let's see here. Ah, yes, this is another good one here. Corporate seed control raises cost stakes for America's food security. Turns out that farmers cannot just grow anything they want. They have to get their seeds from approved sources. Las Vegas locals say hidden fees, less value are driving away tourists. Well, not a bad thing, perhaps. Okay, we did the Charles Flynn story yesterday, right? Hmm. All right. Okay. And Nicki Minaj makes surprise appearance with Erica Kirk. Okay. Rob Schneider, here's what's going on with our culture today. If we're going to continue to have a free society, it's going to require people to step up and be courageous, Schneider said. That is certainly true. That is certainly true. This is a video, so I cannot show it, but that sounds like a good content there. Okay. White House economist proposal coming soon on $2,000 tariff rebate checks. Hmm. we shall see what's going on. All right, so then let's go to Breitbart and see what's going on there. Okay, we don't need that. Okay, also Turning Point, rap megastar Nicki Minaj. Okay. So they're focusing on the Turning Point USA event. Trump removes nearly 30 career diplomats from ambassadorial positions. Well, when a new president comes in, especially if it's a different party, it's quite natural for them to have a change in the ambassadorships. And I think still there is no full ambassador to South Korea. Let's see, who is the current U.S. ambassador to South Korea? I don't think there is one, right? Right. Okay. Joseph Y. Yoon, charge d'affaires and interim U.S. mission, inter U.S. mission Korea. Right. Mm, so he's not the full ambassador. He's charge d'affaires, which is sort of the rank below a full ambassador. So it's interesting that President Trump still has not appointed an ambassador to South Korea. All right, gotta go. I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Tuesday, the 23rd, the fourth day of Chungi, of the 11th month, and I will see you then. God bless Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.